Have you ever walked into your own home and felt like you had to become a completely different person? Maybe you're cheerful around your friends, but unusually quiet around your parents. Maybe you think twice before speaking because you're afraid of being judged, criticized, or simply ignored. You love your parents, and you know they probably love you too. Yet somehow, every conversation leaves you feeling misunderstood. Here's the surprising truth: not all emotional pain comes from families that are abusive. Sometimes it comes from families that simply don't know how to understand each other. A parent can provide food, education, and every material comfort imaginable, yet still leave their child feeling emotionally alone. And that loneliness can quietly shape the way someone sees themselves, their relationships, and even their future. Psychologists have long emphasized that children don't just need shelter and security, they also need to feel seen, heard, and accepted. When those emotional needs aren't met, children often stop expressing themselves. Instead of sharing their fears, they hide them. Instead of asking for support, they convince themselves that nobody would understand anyway. So, how do you know if your parents genuinely don't understand you emotionally? Here are 10 signs that many people don't recognize until much later in life. The first sign is that you never feel truly heard. Every conversation somehow turns into a lecture. You try explaining how you feel, but before you finish your sentence, your parents already have an answer. They tell you what you should do instead of asking why you feel that way. Over time, you stop opening up, not because your problems disappear, but because you no longer believe anyone is listening. Being unheard repeatedly teaches a child that their thoughts don't matter, and eventually silence feels safer than honesty. The second sign is that your emotions are constantly dismissed. Have you ever been told you're overreacting, you're too sensitive, or it's not a big deal? These phrases may seem harmless, but hearing them repeatedly can have a lasting effect. Psychologists call this emotional invalidation. Instead of learning how to understand emotions, children learn to question them. They begin wondering if they're weak, dramatic, or simply too much. As adults, many of these children struggle to trust their own feelings because they spent years being told those feelings weren't valid. The third sign is that your parents have already planned your life for you. They choose the subjects you should study, the career you should pursue, or the kind of person they expect you to become. Advice is normal, guidance is healthy, but when every important decision belongs to someone else, children slowly lose confidence in their own judgment. Many adults later realize they spent years chasing someone else's dream while ignoring their own passions. Supportive parents help children discover who they are. Controlling parents often try to decide that for them. Another common sign is constant comparison. Maybe you've heard, "Look at your cousin, why can't you be like them?" Or, "Your sister never behaves this way." Parents often believe comparison will motivate their children to improve, but research shows it usually has the opposite effect. Instead of feeling inspired, children begin feeling inadequate. They start believing that love and approval depend on outperforming someone else rather than simply being themselves. The result isn't confidence, it's self-doubt. The fifth sign is something many people overlook. Your achievements are expected, but your mistakes are unforgettable. Imagine scoring 95% on an exam, only to hear someone ask, "Where did the other 5 marks go?" Instead of celebrating your success, the focus immediately shifts to what wasn't perfect. When praise becomes rare, but criticism becomes routine, children often grow into perfectionists. They begin believing that their worth depends entirely on achievement. No accomplishment ever feels enough, because there's always another standard waiting to be met. Remember that recognizing these patterns isn't about blaming your parents or labeling them as bad. Parenting doesn't come with a perfect instruction manual, and many mothers and fathers simply repeat what they experienced growing up. The goal isn't to create resentment, it's to create awareness. Because once you understand a pattern, you can begin to break it. The sixth sign is you feel more relaxed when your parents aren't around. Think about that for a moment. Home is supposed to be the place where you can let your guard down. But if you constantly feel anxious, tense, or emotionally drained whenever your parents walk into the room, your body may be telling you something your mind hasn't fully accepted yet. You carefully choose your words, avoid certain topics, and constantly wonder whether what you're about to say will start another argument. Over time, your nervous system stays on high alert. Psychologists sometimes refer to this as walking on eggshells, a state where someone becomes so focused on avoiding conflict that they never truly feel at peace. If the happiest part of your day is when the house becomes quiet, it may not be because you dislike your parents. It may be because your mind finally feels safe enough to relax. The seventh sign is you hide important parts of yourself. Have you ever avoided telling your parents about something exciting simply because you expected criticism instead of encouragement? Maybe you kept your hobbies secret, hid your friendships, or never shared your biggest dreams because you assumed they would laugh, dismiss them, or tell you they weren't realistic. At first, it feels like you're protecting yourself. But over the years, something much bigger happens. You stop letting the people closest to you know who you really are. Healthy relationships are built on honesty. When honesty feels dangerous, emotional distance quietly replaces trust. Here's something fascinating. According to developmental psychologists, children naturally share their experiences with adults they trust. They run home to talk about their day, their achievements, and even their mistakes. But when those experiences are repeatedly dismissed or criticized, the brain slowly learns that silence is safer than vulnerability. That's why some adults still struggle to express their feelings decades later. The eighth sign is your parents expect obedience instead of understanding. Every family has rules, and they are important. But there's a difference between teaching discipline and demanding unquestioning obedience. If every disagreement is treated as disrespect, children eventually stop asking questions altogether. They learn that having their own opinions only creates conflict. Ironically, this doesn't build respect, it builds fear. Respect grows when people feel heard, even when they disagree. Fear grows when people believe they must always stay silent to avoid punishment. Families that encourage healthy conversations often raise children who become confident decision-makers because they've learned that their voice matters. The ninth sign is you feel guilty whenever you put yourself first. Perhaps you've wanted to spend time with friends but felt guilty for saying no to family plans. Maybe you've chosen a career you love but constantly worry about disappointing your parents. Some children grow up believing that their own happiness should always come second. They become people pleasers who measure their worth by how much they sacrifice for others. While kindness is important, constantly ignoring your own needs isn't healthy. Psychologists call this poor boundary development, and it often begins in childhood when children are taught that love must always be earned through obedience or self-sacrifice. Healthy families teach children to care for others and for themselves. Finally, the 10th sign, and perhaps the most important of all, is you don't feel emotionally safe around your parents. Ask yourself one question. If something terrible happened tomorrow, would your parents be the first one you'll call? Could you admit your biggest fear without worrying they'd laugh, criticize you, or compare you to someone else? Emotional safety doesn't mean your parents agree with everything you do. It means you know they'll listen before they judge. It means you feel accepted even when you've made a mistake. Children who grow up with emotional safety usually become adults who trust others, communicate openly, and build healthier relationships. Those who grow up without it often spend years learning that vulnerability isn't weakness, it's part of being human. Now, if you've recognized several of these signs, it's important not to jump to the conclusion that your parents don't love you. Love isn't always expressed in healthy ways. Many parents genuinely want the best for their children, but were never taught how to offer emotional support. Some grew up in households where feelings were ignored. Others believed that being strict was the same as being caring. They may not realize how deeply their words or actions affect the people they love most. At the end of the day, every child deserves more than food, education, and a place to sleep. They deserve to feel heard. They deserve to feel respected. They deserve to know that their thoughts and emotions matter. Because when children feel emotionally understood, they don't just become happier, they become more confident, more resilient, and more capable of building healthy relationships throughout their lives. So, did any of these signs resonate with you? Or perhaps they reminded you of someone you know? Share your thoughts in the comments, not to blame, but to start a conversation. Because understanding is the first step toward healing. And if you enjoy exploring the hidden reasons behind many things, subscribe to Qrious Core. Because sometimes understanding the reason behind make life easy.